I'm going to talk to you all about advanced market indicators or big picture indicators today. So big picture indicators, what are the big picture indicators? Well, they're the market indicators, and they tell you the health of a market or an index. It gives you the big picture. You're not looking at simply an individual indicator like we look at the OBV or the scooter. We're looking at indicators that are going to tell us the health of the market or the index in general. And the easiest way to do this, and I do have a poll running, so go ahead and take it, is to download decision point chart packs. We have a couple of different ones I'll talk to you about briefly, but we're going to really concentrate today on the market indicator chart pack. These have the primary market indicators that I use pretty much every day, the ones that you'll find in the decision point chart gallery. Those are the primary ones, and I'll talk to you briefly about those, but since I cover those pretty much in every other blog that I write, I'm not going to get too detailed about reading those and what we accomplish with those. And then I'm going to go over what I would call the secondary market indicators, and we have a boatload of them. I will show you the ones that we have. I'll go over some of those chart packs and chart lists with you and give you an idea of how you would use these various market indicators. So first of all, with DP analysis studies, there's pretty much two ways to go about it. And we have chart packs that really give you that opportunity to study the market from two different directions. And one I would call is market focused, meaning you're focusing in on one particular index or one particular well, mainly indexes is what we have in there. And you want to look at straight shots or trending condition. You really are concentrating on that one index. You can get some market indicators out of that, but in general, what you're looking at is just focusing in on say, the S&P, and then looking at all the different indicators for the S&P. But what I'm going to go over today is the indicator-focused studies, where you actually start with the market indicator and then look at it across all the different indexes. And that can give you an idea of, we've been talking about how technology is very weak right now, that, we're seeing some problems in finance, but yet utilities are doing well. Those kinds of things you can look through and just look at those market indicators to help you get an idea what's going on across the board as far as small, mid, and large caps. So in particular, these are what we're going to go over. So it's a lot of them. Like I said, I'll go over our primary indicators, the PMO Analysis Charts, Advanced Decline, McClellan Oscillator, New Highs, New Lows. We have, like I said, a boatload, and I'm going to really just scratch the surface with all of these, but I will show you how you can get more information about them. Okay, so what I'm going to concentrate on, like I said, are these decision point chart packs so that you can get these market indicators. So the way you download a chart pack, and I'm going to do it right here and right now with my Market Watchers account. Just go to your account, manage chart packs, and this is going to give you the list of the various chart packs we have. A chart pack includes a number of chart lists with a lot of different charts within each chart list. Now, I'm going to caveat this right off the bat and tell you that you do need to be an extra member or above in order to download a chart pack. They are free, but you need to be an extra member or above because basic members can only have one chart list. And of course, these chart packs include multiple chart lists. So you'll need to be an extra member, but why wouldn't you? These chart packs are fabulous. So here are Arthur's. These are the decision point ones right here that I'll talk to you a little bit about. So the straight shots and trend and condition, like I said, you're going to start off with your index that you're interested in, or if you want oil or gold. Those are where you would go to your straight shots and your trend and condition chart packs. The intraday chart pack, I'm not going to go over, but it's a great one. It's got 10-minute bar charts across the board. This is the one that I'm going to concentrate on, the DP Market Indicators chart pack. And the best part of these is that we have created all the charts for you. And here are all the different ones. And as you can see, a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about, these are all included in the market indicator chart pack. And I'm going to install it. It's very simple. All right, and I'm going to go down to my chart lists. And there you go, the DPMI, that's the chart pack. So these are all the chart lists that are included in that market indicator chart pack. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the DP market indicators that I use primarily. And those are going to be the ones that are in your decision point chart gallery. The chart gallery is fairly easy to get to. Let's go ahead and start right here. Go on over to your control center, and if you scroll down, you'll see the decision point chart gallery. And the condition charts, these are some of the ones that we're going to look at. These are the ones I look at every day, the Swenlin trading oscillators and the ITBM and ITVM. Those are primary indicators that we use to give a health of what's going on within a market index. So I use those all the time. I don't want to go over those in particular just because of the fact that we don't have enough time. So I will probably do a workshop just simply on that. So let's go ahead and just start looking at a few of these. I'm going to start with our PMO analysis charts. I'm going to do the ones that I think are the most important. So if we run out of time, we'll run out of time on the ones I don't think are as important. All right, so what you're going to find with most of our chart lists is that when you go into them, you have not only the S&P, but you also get the other indexes that we cover for that particular indicator. And for the PMO analysis charts, we do have the 4 scoreboard indexes here. So I'm going to pull up the Nasdaq. I think I'm going to kind of concentrate on the Nasdaq 100 as we go through these. And forgive me, these charts are, formatted the way you get them when you go into that chart pack. So I'll just make them a little bigger here for you. So we're looking at the Nasdaq, and these are the PMO indicators that we look at for the analysis. And what we want to see is how many of the 100 components in the Nasdaq have PMOs that are rising. How many are on PMO crossover buy signals? So how many are on PMO buy signals? And then finally, the percent PMO above 0. Now I consider this a big picture indicator because it tells me the health of the Nasdaq 100 in 3 different time frames. I have the short time frame. It just tells me whether momentum is rising or falling for the components. The intermediate term is whether they're on a buy signal, because it takes some time for the PMO to make a buy signal. So that's more intermediate term. And then the longer term is just how many of the PMOs are currently above 0. So I'm looking at this. What are we able to see about the Nasdaq 100 right now? Well, some of the important facts is you can see all of these are pretty much in oversold territory. Right now in the Nasdaq 100, only 14 are rising right now, have PMOs that are going upward. So all of the others have negative momentum right now. So you want to start looking in the short term for this to improve, obviously, and that will tell you that the Nasdaq 100 is getting more healthy. Look at this one though, the crossover buy signals. Right now, only 4 out of the 100 components have crossover buy signals. We're looking at some very oversold conditions as far as these indicators go, and you're going to see that on a lot of these indicators. This isn't to say that they can't go lower. It's not just because they're down at the bottom or they're sitting at the top that it's going to immediately change. One of the things I would point out, especially is when you're looking at the PMO above 0, a lot of times that can persist for quite a while because the PMOs stay above 0. But right now, this is very interesting. You could see we had a declining trend here on those PMOs above 0, and now they're falling oversold. Okay. So that is the PMO Analysis Charts. And like I said, there are 4 different in here, and you can get a peek at what each of them are telling you just very easily. I just love this when you look at it. So what are we seeing in the S&P versus the Nasdaq? Well, we still have very oversold conditions, clearly. Typically, when you get into these oversold conditions, that's when you see market bottoms. There's one back here, I believe, right in here. We had a bottom back in here. So what you do, obviously, is like with the PMO or any indicator, oversold, overbought conditions. But like I said, these conditions can persist, especially on the longer term. All right, so that's PMO Analysis Charts. Let's go ahead and look at the McClellan Oscillator. Tom McClellan's on the show often, and he's got some great indicators, but the ones that his parents came up with, the McClellan Oscillator and Summation Index, are fabulous to use. We have in that McClellan Oscillator chart list, you can get the McClellan Oscillator for all of these different indexes. So even the small caps, we can look at the McClellan Oscillator for small caps and get a feel. Wow, look at that Summation Index. Clearly very, very oversold in the small caps. We had a condition back here where the McClellan Oscillator was hitting lows we had not seen since we had that big correction back in January, February. So you can, again, like I said, we can look at the various ones. I told you we'd concentrate a little bit more on the Nasdaq. All right, so when we look at the oscillator here, one thing I noticed just right off the bat from comparing the S&P 600 to the Nasdaq 100 is the summation index is well above 0 pretty much the whole time. And if we look at the small caps, look at how far below the 0 line. So we're looking at small caps are even further oversold than the Nasdaq at this point. And again, there you go. I won't explain each indicator, but what I will note for you, and if we go back here to our main page. Okay. With all of these chart lists, when you download them, there is chart notes to tell you what to look for and what we cover. So it's very high level, but at least it'll give you an idea of what some of these mean and how we use them. Of course, Chart School will give you excellent opportunity as well. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to move on to looking at the new highs, new lows chart lists. And again, you can get it for various different indexes. And this is why big picture, this is what is so great, is you can come in and look at a particular indicator and then look at it across all of the different indexes and make comparisons. You're able to see which ones appear stronger versus weaker. Like we looked at the McClellan Oscillator and we saw the summation index for the 600 was far more oversold than it was for the Nasdaq 100. Just interesting information to see, but I love being able to go through and look at these for all different indexes. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll peek at these. One thing that you can also do when you're going through these, obviously, is to arrow through. So if you want to get the picture right away on what these are each telling you, you can just arrow through. There we go. What we're looking at right now are the new highs, new lows chart lists. And these are very helpful, again, for finding overbought, oversold conditions. And I believe if you come further down here, oh, no. So anyway, what I like to watch are obviously the 10-day moving average. I find very, very interesting because typically with these, you're going to see those oversold conditions, those bottoms on this particular, the 10-day moving average, like I said, of new highs minus new lows. The bottoms on these typically do pull out price bottoms. So I'm going to just make this a little bit smaller for you all to be able to see it together so I can show you. these better for you. There we go. All right, now you can see everything, and I'm going to go ahead and annotate this. Make it big. All right. Okay, so we're looking at new highs, new lows, histogram. And like I said, the one indicator I like within this chart list are the 10-day moving average of the new highs, new lows. I think these are great. I'm going to just use a vertical line. Let's make it something you can see through. That looks all right. And I'll just add them into where I see these bottoms that have come in on these indicators below the 0 line. And I'm just looking at the indicator here. We'll just see how they match up. So those are bottoms that I caught here. Let's see, here's one way back here and one back here. And where do these line up on the grand scheme of things? Of course, with the price chart, that's what we really want to know. As you can see, it's a pretty darn good indicator to give you those price bottoms or to let you know when we should start looking for prices to rise. So what is that telling me right now about what we have currently? Well, we're decelerating. We don't have a bottom yet. We could continue lower. We've seen it before back here in 2016. I'm going to be watching to see when we get a bottom on this indicator, because I think that would give me a better sense that we're out of the woods right now. All right, so that is those, and I'll just leave those on there. And now they'll forever be in that chart list there. All right, so let's see, what are we going to look at next? Let's go to the put call ratios. All right. And with these, we have it just for the OEX is shown, and then the raw put call ratios. So that's how we have these. I go over with you on Fridays when I do the sentiment report, because looking at put call ratios, again, it can give you an idea of when the market is particularly oversold. So I'm going to just change this to a 1-year chart. And I'm going to make it to where it's easier for you to see it. And we'll make some comparisons here. All right. So again, put call ratio. So when we get numbers that are very small, that means that people are very bullish because that's in the denominator. And when we get numbers that are larger, that's going to obviously show you oversold conditions when people are more bearish. Typically, like with sentiment, when you see these oversold conditions, when people get especially bearish, that's when we start looking for those price reversals. So what is this one telling us just based on that? I'm just going to use these vertical lines. And where are some that stick out to me? I'm going to look at the first two panes, because the third one doesn't always, the OEX put call ratio doesn't always match up. And the reason for this, from what I'm just gathering from the people I have talked to, is that it is related to hedging, that a lot of times people use the OEX put calls for hedging, not necessarily for how they feel about the market right now. So I'm going to look at some of these lows. That looks like a good one back here. Let's see. Oh, that one's good too, I think. That's fairly good. So where do these line up, you know, when we're getting these lows? Well, obviously they don't line up perfectly every time, but typically you can see that those oversold conditions, when people are especially bearish, that's when you start looking for the turnover there. And, you know, when I'm looking at this now, what is it telling me? You know, we're starting to move back up, people are feeling a little bit more bullish. Well, that makes sense, you know, based on the rally that we saw yesterday, rally-ish, and today. So it makes sense that we're seeing these rise, but the bottoms are already put in. So that's one reason why I'm thinking this could just be, you know, a last stand before we start moving a bit lower. But we'll want to watch and see if we get into that overbought, those overbought conditions. All right. Okay, so we've looked at new highs, new lows, put call. Let's go ahead and go to the stocks above the 200-day EMA. Take a peek at these. All right, again, so we can do this study for the NYSE, Nasdaq, Nasdaq 100, et cetera, including mid and small caps. Now, a lot of indicators, you're not going to see these on all these different indexes. Typically, a lot of times what you see, especially on other research sites and such, is you'll get these for one particular index, typically the S&P or the NYSE. So it's nice to be able to look at these various indicators across the board to see what's going on amongst all of them. So as you can see right now, this is another one of those I like because you have 3 time frames on one chart. You have the short term here. Actually, it goes the other way. Longer term is on top because how many stocks are above their 200-day EMA, how many are above their 50, and how many are above their 20 within, in this case, just the Nasdaq. Let's go ahead and look at the Nasdaq 100 since I did say we would sort of stick to that one today. And I'm going to make this smaller so we can all see it better. Oh, that's probably not going to work. Give you time to digest all of this. All right, so this is the Nasdaq 100, and we're looking at the stocks above their 250 and 20-day EMAs. Clearly, we're in oversold territory here. And that's, again, where we start looking for reversals. So I'm going to just do what we did last time. I'm going to go down here to the indicators and look for where we had oversold conditions, where we flipped it around. So that's a good one. I think that would be good, possibly in here. I'll take a peek at one. Right now, guys, I'm just looking at the indicator. I'm not looking up top. So I don't know where they're lining up. I have a pretty good idea because I do study these, but just to look at a few. And there's a big one there and a big one there. All right, so where are these lining up on the price chart? Again, you're seeing how well they do work as oversold, overbought indicators. So what are we seeing right now? Well, I would say yesterday, I would be feeling a little bit nervous because we had turned up on all of these indicators. And now we're starting to tick back down. These are as of yesterday. So we'll have to see what happens at the end of the day. I suspect if we obviously continue a nice run like we're seeing with the Nasdaq 100 up over 2%, I would expect these to continue higher. So this could be, as far as this indicator is concerned, it'll give you the talk about a bear market versus a bull market, when's the price reversal. Well, this chart kind of tells us that we're looking at a price reversal in the making to the upside. But, we've seen where you go into the up, down, and you still continue lower like a bear market. So I'll be watching this one pretty closely. But right now, what it's telling us at that bottom is we should start to expect some more upside momentum. And just for the heck of it, let's look at the S&P 600 just so you can see how we do have this for all of the various indexes. S&P 600, we're looking pretty ugly here. We only have 7%, a little over 7% of the small caps above their 20-day EMA. We've got only 10% above their 50. This is, typically you don't see these numbers on the top two take a dive quite as quickly, which is obviously concerning. But the good news is, like I said, is we're sitting here in very, very oversold territory. I mean, what it's telling me is we should start looking for that price reversal on the Nasdaq 100, on the S&P 600. It is up 1.75% today. The question is, of course, is this going to be just a short-term bounce followed by more correction? When I look at these particular indicators, it certainly gives me, makes me feel a little bit more optimistic. All right, so the last ones I'm going to look at are the volatility indexes. And these are, again, these are all set up for you. You saw me download this chart pack. These are right there for you. You can see that price has now gotten into the Bollinger Band here for the S&P 500. We look at the VIX very often. But one thing we don't look at are the volatility index for all these other particular indexes, and even with gold and oil. So Nasdaq 100, I said we would look at the VIX there. This is not an inverted scale, which I normally use. So by seeing the penetration to the upside, that's when I start looking for bottoms. We got that, but now we're back inside the Bollinger Bands. That tells me that, you know, while we are in that top part, so that makes us more vulnerable to downside action. When it gets to this other part of, you know, when it gets to the lower side of the Bollinger Band, that's when I start to feel a little bit better about getting into the market, re-entering. Currently, with it being below its average right now, or I should say well above, that isn't the kind of situation I want. I want to look at when we have the volatility index on the low side or below its moving average. And if you look back here, if we had waited until that moment in time, that would have put us back in here to get some opportunity off of that rise once you were in. You know, it's just one of those things Tom and I talk about, Tom particularly, that when you have, you know, such high volatility index readings, that's when you're you know, the market is vulnerable to all kinds of corrections and wide-ranging snaps to the downside, the upside. Better to just stay on the sidelines if possible. And then, like I said, we even have the gold volatility index here. Finally, I was just going to let you know that we also have the sentiment indicators in here that I go over. The AAII, as you can see, name, Wall Street sentiment. So all of these are also available to you. So let's go ahead and conclude this up here. Here are the takeaways for today's workshop. So I gave you kind of the definition of a market indicator versus like a stock indicator, the ones we use for an individual stock. Market indicators are big picture. They're going to tell you what's happening with all of the components within an index. And you can do indicator studies and index studies. And what we looked at was really the indicator studies, looking at an indicator across all of the different indexes. And then finally, I showed you how to download those DP chart packs. They are free, but remember, you do need to be an extra member or above. And that's all I have for you today. Let's go ahead and maybe bring up that poll that we had. Just, I'm curious to know what everybody's thinking. So of that 43% of you, if you are an extra member, I expect that to change to a yes after my presentation today. To that 35 or third percent out there, yay. Glad to see I've got some DP fans there. If you didn't know what a chart pack was, hopefully today with my demonstration, you do have an idea of what one is. And like I said, very helpful, but you do need to be an extra member or above. And what do you think about chart packs? Tom, have you downloaded any?
I actually did download Arthur's chart pack because he had a number of ETFs that he had already put together these lists. So it saved me a ton of time. In particular, I know there were some small cap ETFs that track the sectors that I use relative to the large cap sectors. So it saved me a ton of time. So I would highly recommend that folks take a look at these chart packs, and they are free.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the other one I didn't talk about was the StockCharts Essentials chart pack. And that one is a great one if you need some of the basic market indicators. Those are in there. And it also gives you kind of an outline, a way to organize your chart lists as well. So I recommend that one.